guys, over these next series of videos, we're going to cover off the all-important topic of onboarding. We'll cover some key takeaways that you need to consider when you're onboarding your Filipino team, and also just covering off our guide as to how to get the best out of your onboarding experience and making sure that your team members are really on board with you, your culture, your company, your people, and that you've got engagement for the long term. So here comes some great tips and tricks. So how you would approach onboarding would be the same way that you would approach onboarding an Australian team member or your onshore team member. You need to dedicate time, energy, and thought into getting the process right and to ensuring engagement from your offshore team member. We have a whole department called the Client Experience Team, which are dedicated in servicing you as the client to ensure that your onboarding process with us is seamless and that your offshore team member feels comfortable and is engaged and is certainly having a happy experience. The role of we call it CEM for short, is to really check in with you as the client and make sure that you're having a great experience with us here at TOA and that the expectations you have of your team member is actually being met. And if there's any issues or concerns, you can always reach out to your CEM and table it with them, get it resolved, and keep the journey going. So it's really important, guys, that you do take the time to get the onboarding right, but we are most certainly here to help you for any issues or any questions that you have as you go along. So what we do here at TOA is we will provide a 1-week onboard training platform which your staff member will actually commence on day 1. And that's really integral to a smooth onboarding process, and it means that they're familiar with TOA, our processes, and they familiarise themselves with where they sit, where the facilities are, and really basic things like that just to make them feel at home. After that week, we really hand the reins over to you. And I think to ensure a smooth onboarding process, you'll need to have that week clearly mapped out. One of the great tips we got from an existing client that onboards really well is looking at 1 task on day 1, 2 tasks on day 2, 3 tasks on day 3, and so on and so forth. And you might even look at your own rating system so that it gives your staff member a very clear indication as to how that first week with you has been progressing. The role of the CEM in this process is vital to your success as well. So please expect our client experience team to reach out to you at multiple points throughout the week. And then ongoing, we'll have touch points with you at month 1, month 3, month 5, and then every 6 months thereafter. So guys, the best solution to how you should approach your onboarding remotely is to really consider it as how you would approach your onboarding with your local team. The best way to think about it though is that you're having the same communication, the same level of contact, but you're doing it via a remote platform. So as we said earlier in the piece, it's always great to invest in a stable platform. We use GoToMeeting, a lot of people use Skype for Business or Zoom, but really finding your feet and making sure that that's part and parcel of the onboarding journey. So what we cover here at the Outsourced Accountant in that first week of onboarding is a very general overview of Australian tax. If you need specific details on what these modules look like, please do reference your training manual and you'll find it on pages 5 onwards. There's 2 options you can choose from. We get into specifics of MYOB, or we also look at Xero depending on what you're using. So So do look at that. It does cover off a lot of the points and what that first week will look like for your team member. From week 2, we look to you. So what you do need to do is have a clear and outlined training schedule for your team member with very specific outcomes. If you want them to do 1 week's training with their point of contact here in your onshore team, then you need to have that clearly outlined in that week's training guide. Make sure that they're having regular contact and make sure that you're checking in with them on a daily basis and wrap up the week on a Friday. We would also recommend, as we've said in a previous video, that you get your team member over to your onshore company, or you get your point of contact or the people that are in charge of your training department over to the Philippines so you can sit side by side and really walk your team member through the specifics of their role and really trying to create that cultural team mentality. So it's up to you guys. We're here to help, but we certainly have some great ideas on how you can do it well. Our suggestions in terms of scaling up and growing out your team, and particularly with the onboarding approach, would be to really identify who your key player is in your team. So we've had a great example with a number of clients that have done this already. They've brought their team over to their onshore company. They've quickly identified who is a strong team lead, and they've focused a lot of their energy into their training so that they're able to go back to the Philippines, train out the rest of the team. So one of the really great tips is really identify who that key player is in your team, who's ready to take the next step or certainly shows promises of in the future taking that step to being a team lead, to having the ability to train your team underneath them so that as you onboard, you grow, you scale, you've got a really quick, easy 2-week onboarding process with your Filipino team member. You get to take a step back and just watch it grow. One of the things we've done here at the Outsourced Accountant is actually put together an onboarding framework for you to reference, use as a guide, and just keep it in hand as your team member onboards over in the Philippines. Our account management team here in Australia will have this document for you, and it'll be part and parcel of your onboarding process here with us in Australia. So keep an eye out for that framework, and if you need another copy, don't hesitate to reach out and ask. So how important is it to go over and onboard your team directly over at the Philippines? Well, we think it is crucial and it certainly will fast track your success with your offshore team. There's so many obvious reasons, but one of the key things are you get that person-to-person contact with your team member. They get to know you, you get to know them, and that's really going to create an incredible team environment. When you come back to your onshore team, you've already got a great rapport. You'll build trust, and that's critical when getting the best out of your offshore team. And you'll also feel confident in knowing that you've done the step-by-step training guide with them. You've sat with them, you've gone through the problems, you've workshopped any conceivable issues that they may have. So you're going to leave the Philippines feeling super confident that your offshore team member knows exactly what's going on. From a cultural perspective, we couldn't recommend it more highly. You'll have an incredible time learning about the local area, particularly in Clark, and getting to know your team members on more of a personal level too. So again, we couldn't speak more highly of it. You will reap the benefits when you invest your time in training your Philippines team over there, and certainly we think it will make a standout piece for you as you continue your offshore journey. So what you'll be surprised with when you onboard your new team is just how engaged, enthusiastic and excited your team members are going to be working with you. When you're creating great communication and making a real drive to create the relationship, the trust will absolutely be there, and I think you'll just be delighted in the fast-paced learning style that your team members will adopt, and will quickly adapt to. You'll also be pleasantly surprised at the level of engagement and the quick pace that work is completed. It's very different if I was to compare it with an Australian graduate. You would see vast differences once you start onboarding your team member. We also find that your communication style needs to be direct and clear, because sometimes there can be a tendency for a little bit of shyness, or perhaps just a meekness in not wanting to say that something hasn't been understood. So one of our tips is to be really clear around your communication, what your outcomes you're expecting, so that there is no confusion, and maybe even ask your team member just to say, hey, can you just quickly repeat that back to me so I know we're both on the same page. Once you've got that nailed, you will absolutely be delighted at the progress, the pace, and the enthusiasm that your team members work with. Top tip for onboarding, I would say, and collectively across our group here at the Outsourced Accountant, it would be invest in your team. Treat them as if you would any of your onshore team members, and make sure that you're really taking the time to get to know them, to really clearly articulate the workflow, and make sure that you have fun. They're an extension of your onshore team, and honestly, with a little bit of excitement, fun, and engagement, you're going to have some really great results. Guys, if I can leave you with one pearl of wisdom, it is creating that onboarding and training plan. And if you don't want to do that, then we've prepared one for you already. So we will send that out as part of our onboarding structure. So make sure you keep an eye out for it in your inbox. But that is gold.